One of the Chicago Bears rookies labeled as a breakout candidate for the 2026 season already, but I'm going to talk about other rookies that also could break out in the 2026 season. Cunningham getting a second interview for another GM job, and the Chicago Bears have been linked to a $45 million defensive lineman move. And we're talking about 3 players and what the Chicago Bulls should do with them, and an article that says the Bears should re-sign them. We're talking about all that and more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And Pro Football Focus has dubbed Ozzy Trapilo as a breakout candidate for the 2026 season, saying this: Trapilo's respectable level of play, once he was inserting into the starting lineup, may have cleared him the Bears' left tackle job heading into 2026. From week 12 through the wild card round, Trapilo owned a 73.5 PFF overall grade, a top 30 figure among qualified offensive tackles. It should be noted that he had not played left tackle since 2022, so there should be further improvement in store. We've talked so much about the job that Ryan Poles did with the 2025 draft class. It was immaculate. It was damn near a perfect job by Ryan Poles, what he was able to do. We're talking about a 7th-round pick in Kyle Monangai being not only one of the best, rookies in that class as far as running the ball, just somebody who just looks like their future is going to be very bright for them in a Chicago Bears uniform. Now, Ozzy Trapilo is going to have a rough start to 2026. That's something they don't talk about in this article. He's going to have a 6 to 12-month recovery in regards to that injury that he had. And so there's very possible that we could not see Ozzy Trapilo for the majority of the 2026 season, depending on how bad it is. Now, details have not been made as far as exactly into the recovery, but that type of injury usually carries 6 to 12 months. If it's 6 months, we could see him, maybe after the first month of the season. But if it gets longer than that, we could be talking about an Ozzy Trapilo that may lose half the season, if not more. So, it's good to see that. It's a ruptured patella tendon was the injury, and he got that in the wild card round. So just keep that in mind. But I do want to use this to leapfrog and talk about the importance that we've seen that in the Bears 2025 draft class. There's a lot of really good players that we drafted in that draft class. You look at Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, and how that they came on as the season went on. Kyle Monangai, a guy that I just talked about the season that he had after being drafted in the 7th round. And a lot of Bears fans, if they're admitting it, were down on the Bears and didn't think that the Bears, went out and attacked the running back position in the way that they wanted to. And it turns out the Bears had one of the best rushing attacks in the game of football last season. The Bears rookie class was really impressive. And that's without guys like Shamar Turner, didn't play really at all, right? Zay Frazier, a guy that the Bears were very excited about, didn't play at all, right? So you have those guys, Ruben Hippolyte. You still have those guys that can make the draft class even stronger. And so when you hear about the breakout candidates for the Bears, or Ozzy Trapilo being labeled as that, that's great. And him, Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, Kyle Monangai, they all could have even better 2026 campaigns than what they had in 2025. But it's the other players as well that can further make that draft class such a win for the Chicago Bears. I'm all for giving Ryan Poles his flowers when he earns them. I'm all for giving criticism when he earns that too. But Ryan Poles cooked in 2025, and we got to hope that starts being a motto for this Bears team, that we just continue to draft really, really well. And if Ryan Poles hits another home run to 2 in this 2026 draft class, it just keeps going with the Bears making the forward progress that they need to as a team to get to where that they need to be. And we're going to see what happens there. Ozzy Trapilo had a great season. It's just no doubt about that. The Bears rookies overall, there's so much to believe about it. But Trapilo is going to have a little bit of, to get back to Trapilo, he's going to have a little bit of a difficult road ahead of him when it comes to recovery, right? That 6 to 12 month recovery window, it means that the Bears are going to have to look at a more short-term solution, whether it's Braxton Jones, whether it's Theo Benedict, bringing both those guys back who are both slated to hit free agency. More on one of those guys here in a second. But if Ozzy Trapilo, who, again, as pointed out in that article, did not play left tackle since 2022, if he became one of the better left tackles over a stretch of starting in a time where he hadn't played that position in 3 years, let's see what he can do. Let's see what he can do now with getting to focus on that position, knowing exactly that's where he's going to be, those type of things, and let's see what we can make of it. You have to draft well. You have to develop well also, because as the Bears are already seeing now, that the salary gets less and less for you as you have to re-sign more players, it gets more and more difficult of a thread to hit on as you go on in your development process, and that's what the Bears have to figure out. So Ozzy Trapilo, great player. This whole rookie class, really solid, and it can get even better because, listen, I tell you what, I still believe in Shamar Turner. And I think he's going to get an opportunity, especially on a hopefully revamped defensive line. More on that in a second. Ruben Hippolyte, the speed that he's going to bring at linebacker, and we're probably going to need that with TJ Edwards. May miss the start of the season as well for the first month of the season also. So, we'll see what's going to happen there. But the Bears did a really good job in the draft class. Ryan Poles cooked. Ryan Poles absolutely cooked. And no, for those who are like, oh, it's really Ben Johnson doing it. No, Ben Johnson has input, as every coach has had input in what the Bears have done in the draft. But Ryan Poles cooked in the draft. Let's see if he can do it again. With that said, one of the guys that helped Ryan Poles makes those decisions is Ian Cunningham. And Ian Cunningham, who has gotten tons of interviews over the past, few off seasons for GM roles, according to Jeremy Fowler, Ian Cunningham did move on to the second round of interviews for the Atlanta Falcons GM job. And keep in mind, this is a team that he has been forward in second interviews before. Like, he's worked with this franchise before. He interviewed for the president of football operations. They ended up going to Matt Ryan, right? So Ian Cunningham, who's been here since Ryan Poles since 2022, he's been a finalist for a lot of GM openings over the last few years. But it does feel like, hey, this could be the year that it actually does happen. And if it does, keep in mind, we're going to see then, we're going to get compensatory picks. I think a third round compensatory pick, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody correct me, fact check me on that one. But I believe it's going to be a third round compensatory pick if we do end up going forward. But let's be clear here, the Texans assistant GM also has a second in-person interview for the GM job as well. So it seems like Cunningham and Lipford James Lipford is the other guy, are the two finalists for this job. And we're going to see. Keep in mind, though, that Ryan Poles does have a history with Matt Ryan as well, which could make Cunningham a front runner. And like we talked about with the coaching staff, teams come calling. And it's something that is just a byproduct of being successful in the NFL. There are going to be people who poach your coaches, poach your staff, poach your executives, poach your assistants. It's going to happen, right? But I do think that we could take that as a further sign that the Bears are headed in the right direction. How many years did we go through where nobody wanted anything to do with anybody from the Bears? It was almost a stitch that was on people that left the Chicago Bears to where they had to almost reinvent some things. So Ian Cunningham has been instrumental here with Chicago. I know that Ryan Poles gets a lot of the praise, gets most of the criticism as well, but we can't ignore, if you watch this team closely, you've seen the things behind the scenes and stuff like that, you know that Ian Cunningham is in charge a large part in scouting. He does take control of it. I'm not saying Ryan Poles doesn't as well, but Ian Cunningham has been instrumental in that. Ian Cunningham also, Ryan Poles has admitted, he stopped Ryan Poles from making some mistakes sometimes, right? They're overlooking some things. So Ian Cunningham, I know that a lot of it's looked at as Ryan Poles, but Ian Cunningham has done a great job here as well. And if he does end up leaving Chicago, hey, listen, it sucks, but the world turns, and we're going to keep it moving. Everything got to keep going for the Chicago Bears. Even if we do lose Ian Cunningham, it just means, hey, Ryan Poles, whether you promote from within, maybe you go out and find another young mind. And I've said this before too. I think that it may benefit the Chicago Bears to maybe get a new set of eyes in here and be forced to do that. That new set of eyes can help you maybe, remove some attachments for some other players and stuff like that. And, that may be needed for the Chicago Bears. It may be required that the Bears, get an opportunity to get a new, fresh set of eyes, kind of help review things, especially with the Bears going into the offseason where they're $4.3 million over the salary cap. We're going to have a lot of restructurings. We may have to cut some players, may have to make some trades, maybe bringing in a new set of eyes to help kind of bring that together actually helps this team make some more surprising moves. Sometimes you just need a breath of fresh air and a new set of eyes, a new voice in there. So maybe that helps the Chicago Bears. With that said, one of the things I just talked about is the Bears are going to have to revamp the defensive line. There's no doubt about it. The defensive line was disappointing last year. There's just no doubt about it, right? Now, Ben Johnson's talked about the hope and the plans for Dayo Odeyingbo when he gets back healthy, right? They saw some improvements from Javon Dexter, but the Bears fans are still largely disappointed with Javon. I understand. Austin Booker was hurt the majority of the season, showed some flashes into that. But the Bears are going to have to do something on that defensive line to get a more consistent pass rush. I personally think a more consistent pass rush may be the difference between the Bears getting over that next hump and being able to actually make it to an NFC championship, being able to actually maybe win the NFC. A consistent pass rush could be so important for that. Well, according to Alex Clay of Bleacher Report, the Bears are a team that could be a landing spot for John Franklin Myers, saying this: at 6'4", 288 pounds, he can line up both on the defensive end and defensive tackle spots. That versatility, coupled with an unstoppable motor, allows him to thrive in whatever role he's asked with a game-to-game, on a game-to-game and even play-by-play basis. Although 29 years old isn't the youngest free agent, he still has plenty tread left on his tires and shouldn't have any issues continue to contribute at a high level for the duration of a type of long-term deal he's expected to sign this offseason. So let's look at John Franklin Myers, right? A guy that last season, for example, 12 solo tackles, 7.5 sacks he had as well, which is really good. In back-to-back years, 2024 and 2025, 7 and 7.5 sacks. He has 34 sacks over his NFL career that started in 2018 with the Los Angeles Rams. This is a guy that he gets to the quarterback. He's pretty consistent in doing that. He also adds versatility. We know Dennis Allen does like players that can play multiple positions. That's kind of one thing that we're hearing that could be used for Dayo Odeyingbo. Now, I would say this. Lately, the Chicago Bears haven't had the best success with players that can play inside and out. I don't think it's been terrible either, but we haven't necessarily had the level of success that we want to see from those guys. But when you look at the Bears, the salary cap restraints, all those type of things that they have, this is a swing that I wouldn't necessarily mind the Chicago Bears taking it all. I get it. He's 29 years old. He'll turn 30 right around the start of the NFL season, right around that area. And so because of that, there's rightfully so some questions in regards to that, right? About adding that. But I think much like the Bears did with the offensive line, sometimes you got to add veterans, even if they, are at that precipice where it's like, hey, this is probably going to be their last long-term deal because it sets a floor. The Bears not only need ceiling risers, they need floor risers, especially on that defensive line. And I think this is a guy that can do that, right? 25 total tackles last year, 12 of those being solo, 13 assisted clearly, 7.5 sacks that he had as well. Didn't have any fumbles forced. He's only had 2 over the course of his career. I think the guy brings some size. I think he'd be better than Big Billings in there. Definitely probably better than Grady Jarrett as well. If he plays on the interior, he has the ability to set the edge as well. And this is the type of move that I can see the Bears making. Now, it's going to take a pretty decent contract to get him in here, which is the Bears are going to have to that's a needle that they're going to have to very, very much so thread. But I do think that, he plays the style that we can, up and down the defensive line. It's pretty solid in the run. He can tackle very nicely. He slides his feet. He can be a edge rusher as well. And he takes advantage of players that are smaller than him pretty consistently, right? But one could say, and I like to talk about both sides of things, that was the original sign and that was the original play for Dayo Odeyingbo. That's what they said that Dayo was going to be able to do for the Bears too. And it never really worked out that way for Dayo. Now, Dayo, to his credit, was never a starter. He was always a depth piece. And there's a lot different expectations as his depth piece than being a starter. The Bears brought him in to be a starter. So with that, and Dayo's injury, it went where it went. Right now, Dayo has a huge contract next season, so it could be there. But I'll say this, having guys like Franklin Myers, and if Dayo does have a bounce back year because we're going to use him more in the interior next season, and you have those two guys there, that can actually help your defensive line quite a bit. So we're going to see. I like the names that are being mentioned for the Chicago Bears. The Bears need some speed on that defensive line. They need some versatility on that as well. I think that frees up also Austin Booker and how you want to use him. So I think this is something that could work for the Chicago Bears. I'm not saying that he needs to be a day one free agency call for the Bears or anything like that, or the free agency hinges on your ability to sign this guy or not. But I do think when you look at it, he's a guy that could definitely help the Bears. He can help, improve the defensive line like we needed improved on. And we'll see what we can get there. But that has to be the priority for Ryan Poles. Of course, the cap, managing that is the actual priority, but you're managing that so you can sign edges, that you can improve this defensive line. That is the goal here. And that's what Ryan Poles has to do. That is the task in front of him this offseason. Last year, it was the offensive line. This year, it's the defensive line. And a combination between vets and draft picks, you have to get this defensive line in a more respectable place. We can't be towards the bottom of the league. And I'm not expecting this to go from worst to first either. If we can get a more, probably middle of the pack, maybe upper middle of the pack, be around 15th, 14th, somewhere in that, in our pass rush next season, that goes a long way in changing and making it easy on your cornerbacks and your secondary, which I think are fully healthy. I still think the Bears can potentially have one of the best secondaries in the game of football fully healthy. But it just goes to show how important the pass rush and pass coverage is. You got to go hand in hand with that. And we'll see what the Bears do with it. But let me know what you guys think on Franklin Myers down below. Can this guy come in and help the Chicago Bears? Do you have your set sight on, of course, bigger fish? But then keep in mind, there are salary cap restraints for the Bears. This isn't Madden. You can't just sign everybody. So we're going to see what happens there. With that said, I want to talk about this article from Clutch Points. They named 3 players that the Bears must re-sign going into the season. And I can tell you right now, I don't agree with all these guys. They do name as number 1 Kevin Byard. We all know the stats for Kevin Byard last season. 7 interceptions. It led the NFL in that. A Pro Bowl starter, one of the captains for this team as well. Kevin Byard and the signing that and what Kevin Byard has brought to this team has been amazing. It's been great. It's been just great what he's been able to do as a veteran. Now, I do think that Byard and his age, you're probably not signing him into more than a 1 or 2 year deal. But I do think that, Ryan Poles already buried the lead there when he said, I have no problem saying that Kevin Byard is somebody we absolutely want back. So they're going to try to bring Kevin Byard back as they should. Byard's been everything that you could possibly imagine as a veteran signing for that. But I do think this, while I agree, re-sign Kevin Byard, you have to start preparing for a world in which Kevin Byard is not your long-term answer. So I do think the Bears still need to draft a safety. Even if they keep Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker, you still need to draft a safety. You still have to do that, in my opinion, to just set yourself up. But Kevin Byard, in a lot of ways, was the glue for the Chicago Bears team last season, and you can't ignore that. I think removing him from this team and his vocality and his leadership, it would be detrimental to the Chicago Bears to lose that. So Kevin Byard is absolutely somebody I would love to see back in the Chicago Bears uniform. Next up, they say at number 2, they say Nahshon Wright. Of course, 5 interceptions. We already know what he did there. 8 total takeaways, which led the NFL. Nahshon Wright was a revelation. For a season that we lost Kyler Gordon early, we didn't have Jalen Johnson, didn't see any of Terrell Smith. Our young rookie that we were excited about in Zay Frazier didn't play a single snap, right? He turned himself into a turnover, a machine. But the thing is that in coverage, Nahshon Wright left a lot to be desired. Me and my boy Darius, you kind of remember at the beginning of the season, we kind of went back and forth on Nahshon Wright, but Nahshon in coverage left a lot to be desired. And I just personally think that with what we already have here, right, in Jalen if he's 100%, and Kyler if he's 100%, and of course, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Haize, can we bet on them to be 100%? Yeah, but you still got Zay Frazier coming up. You still got Terrell Smith. You got Tyreek Stevenson, who I think, we'll see what happens with Tyreek, but I still think Tyreek is when he gets back to his natural role and fit with Jalen and Kyler being out there, I think we've seen much better from him, right? So, I have reason to believe that Tyreek Stevenson can get back to being decent enough. But, hey, if you want to upgrade from him, you upgrade from him. Cut his ass, you upgrade from him, especially if you see with some of the secondary players that are going to be in this draft. But I just don't see the Bears bringing back Nahshon Wright, right? Takeaways were our identity, and that could very well get him. And if the Bears do re-sign him back, I'm not saying that it's a terrible move to do it. But I just think when you look at the depth and where we have to address in other places, I don't know if Nahshon Wright's actually going to be back for the Chicago Bears. I do think he's going to get a great opportunity somewhere else if it's not here, and we'll see what he does with that. But, hey, Pro Bowler, one of the most unexpected stories in the NFL this season, and one of the best Bears stories. Nahshon Wright deserves a contract. You don't always get what you deserve because of situations. I just don't know if it's going to be here. Next up, and the one that's probably going to be the most controversial on Clutch Points list here is Braxton Jones. Now, they do say in this, Braxton won't trend on social media. His value is obvious inside Hallis Hall. Here's the thing that I'm going to say. With Ozzy Trapilo not being there to start, he's not there. I just want to be clear there. He's not going to be there to start, right? So bringing back Theo Benedict and Braxton Jones, players that already have chemistry, that already kind of are familiar with their system, may be what the Chicago Bears do. Now, Braxton also could very well find that he has a way bigger market. I don't think the Bears should bring him back if it's going to cost too much. But if Braxton Jones goes out and he sees that the market isn't necessarily what he would want it to be, come back to the Chicago Bears. You may end up having another opportunity to start. But even then, Theo Benedict passed you up too. But I just think because of the injuries, because of familiarity, and Dan Rouchard, keep in mind, Dan Rouchard has still talked very positively about Braxton more than not. We'll see. And I think that there's going to be a void there with Ozzy Trapilo's injury that's already going to be created for the Chicago Bears. Maybe you want to keep familiarity, keep Theo, keep Braxton Jones, bring him back. So I can see a world in which you bring Braxton Jones back. I'm not saying that I'm the happiest about it, but because you have other things to focus on and other holes to fix, you may just run board, bring those guys back, maybe hope Karen Amagaje can play a little bit more. I don't know, but we'll see what happens with Braxton. I know Braxton has his fans in the Bears fan base as well. Not everybody is a Braxton Jones hater. There's some people that actually want to see Braxton get more of an opportunity, so maybe they get to see that now. Let me know what you guys think on that part down below. With that said, man, that's it, man. When you look at the Bears right now, we're at a tier now where good things are going to start happening. Coaches, execs, they're going to get poached. It is what it is. There's going to be pressure for the Bears in free agency, and the big roster decisions are going to come very fast once the offseason opens for the Chicago Bears. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments on a few things. Is Ozzy Trapilo your biggest breakout candidate for 2026? Do you want to bet on a different player that's actually probably going to play the majority of the season? Would you pay for Franklin Myers to bring him in here, or would you spend that money elsewhere? And if you could only keep two, between Byard, Wright, and Braxton Jones, which two of those guys are you going to be picking? Make sure you guys are following us at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, chicagobearcentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. And yeah. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.